Hello everyone, I'm Shivam Gulati back again with my database project, and this time it's library management system using database. So let's start right away. So in library management system, I have created 5 tables. First one being the books, then we are capturing users, then we are capturing issues, then we are capturing returns, and then the find table, which will contain the fine amount for each fine ID, and we'll see how this is being captured. So starting with the books table, it contains the static details such as book ID, book title, and the book author. And then we have the users ID, users table that contains user ID, name, and designation. So designation can be staff or student. Then we have the issues table that has issue ID, book title, borrower ID, and so on. If you can see, I've already mentioned here that all the black line that you see are the foreign key relationships, and the green lines are trigger to get value into that particular column. So for example, let's take the issuers table. So the issue date that we are capturing in the issues table is being used in the returns table. So basically, we have a foreign key relationship on return ID to issuer's ID. So using this, we can capture all the details that are being captured in issues table using a trigger. We are getting that value into the returns table. And similarly, we are capturing these details in the find table. So we have the borrower ID, which is being used to capture the details. And let's straight away dive into the data types of all these tables to give you a clear picture about them. So as always, I use Excel to make all the insert statements. And here's the sample data that I've used for the static table books. So it has the book ID, the book title, and the book author. Sorry, here's the author, and here's the title. And then we have the users table. I've already added a static table. I'm in this. I'm acting as a staff member. We're telling you the difference between the student and staff. In this case, I have added one difference that we displayed it while we will make insertions in the database. Let's jump to the issues table where we have the issue ID and the book ID. So this basically is having a foreign key to the books table, and it is fetching all these green values using the books table. So there's a trigger running, which is using this book ID that we are inserting and capturing all these green details using this ID from books table. So your book ID is giving us all these details. Right. So the book ID is giving you the book title. All these details are being fetched to your borrower ID. So basically, this ID is going to be used from the users table, and based on the user's ID, these two values are being fetched using a trigger and getting inserted into the issuers table, borrower name and designation. And issue date, as such, we have kept as this date. So at the time of insertion, current date would be inserted. And for date expiry, I have put in a logic such that for a staff member, the expiry date should be after 5 days from the issue date. And for a student, it should be 4 days after the issue date. I'll show you that logic inside the SQL statement while executing them. Now let's jump to the return table. So based on this book ID, we are able to capture all these details. First, let's talk about these three values: the borrower ID, borrower name, and issue date. All these things are captured through the issues table. The ID, borrower name, designation, everything is available in issues ID. And since we have a foreign key relationship for issue ID with return ID, so we are able to capture those details easily. Then we have the delay that is captured in terms of days. So basically, it will subtract the return date with the deadline date. Your deadline date is nothing but the date expiry in issues table. So in case your return date exceeds the deadline date, it would simply capture the difference. Otherwise, it will return 0 in delay. I'll show that logic as well in the SQL file. So now, apart from that, we have a find table wherein we just need to enter the book ID, and based on that, we will get the values of all the other columns. So we have a sequence running on the find ID. We don't need to worry about the find ID. And for book title, borrower ID, borrower name, and delay. Up to these, we can capture them from the returns table because we have the value ready, and we can simply use the book ID, and the max return ID should return the latest return ID, and the found amount is calculated based on the delay. So delay multiplied by 10 times is the find amount. So per day we are charging 10 rupees. You can change that in the trigger. So I think that should be it from the design perspective. Let's just move to the database level. So for the SQL files, so we have the SQL file ready with the tables and the search statement for books and the users. Let's copy. First, let's make all the tables. Alright, all the tables are done. So let's insert the values in the static tables, that is books and the users. Oops. Alright, let's commit. So let's see the values that we have 8 values, and when we start decision. Now let's go through each and every trigger that we have in place one by one. We'll execute them one by one after going through each of them. So here I'm just creating the sequence. Let's just open the Excel sheet side by side to help us understand it clearly. So position this for you. Alright. So now for the issuer's ID, we are simply using a sequence, which is starting from 1 and has a maximum value of this much. So that means the max issuer ID would return the latest issuer ID. Now let's execute the sequence for the first time being. Alright. Now then we have a trigger which is executing on each row insertion, and then we are simply checking if in case the issuer's ID is null, that will, in case we are not passing the issuer's ID, which is true in this case, you see this equal insertion statement, then it will simply insert the next value from this above sequence into the issuer's ID. Logic. And then we have the same thing for borrower name. So since we want to automate all the values being inserted for these 4 fields, what I've done is I'm selecting the values from the users table based on the borrower ID that we are mentioning. So since the user ID over here is the unique identifier, we can simply capture name and designation based on the user ID. So what I did here was I selected the name from your users table into the borrower name. So this was the variable that we declared above, And now the borrower name has Shubham inside it because it's referring to the user ID staff 001. Now I am inserting in the next statement, I am inserting borrower's name into the new value of borrower's name that is getting inserted into the issues table. So this is getting value as Shubham with this statement. And similarly, we are getting the value for borrower designation using the variable borrower design. And same way we are getting the book title from the books table using the book ID. So based on the book ID, we are getting the book title. Then let's jump to the returns table after executing this. Yeah. So next is the calculation for issue expiry. It does involve the logic behind it. So like I told you, so based on the designation of the user, we have set the value for expiry. So for student, I've kept the value for as 4. So that means student can keep the book with himself for 4 days. And post that, fine will be imposed. But for staff member, that would be true after 5 days. So staff member can keep it for 5 days. Let's see how it's getting used. So in case our new, that means the date expiry is null. Let's come back to issues tables. So yeah, so in case the value for this is being passed as null, which is true in this case because we are only passing book ID, borrower ID, and issuer date. So that means we are passing date expiry as null. So in that case, what I did is I simply selected the designation using the borrower ID, which is linked to the users table, which will return the designation. And as soon as I get the designation, I check whether it's a student or a staff. Based on that, I am selecting the issue date plus the expiration period. For student, it's 4. For staff, it's 5. Into the date expiry. So that means in case the issue date is today is 13th of May, so plus 5 would be 18th of May for staff and plus 4 17th of May for student. So yeah, I mean I really like this logic a lot, and yeah, it can be used in very vast scenarios as well. Solve all your queries. Then we have the footer on returns table. Let's simply jump to that table. So here we are basically just returning the values from the issuer's ID or in books. So based on this book ID, we can easily return the borrower ID, borrower name, and all the values because we have the return ID linked to the issuer's ID. So for one issuer ID, we have a one mapping to return ID because we have foreign key relationship between return ID and your issuer ID. So in case your issuer ID is 1, your return ID would also be 1. It will automatically fetch that based on the book ID. It will select the max of the issuer ID. The book ID is this. So based on that, these values are being fetched. Let's check this trigger once. So in case your return ID is null. So the logic for this is that we are selecting the max issuer ID where this book ID is same. Book ID is same and max issuer ID would mean that the latest transaction that we had with this book. So that these values are available in this issuers table, so we can easily capture them based on the book ID. Until issues date, we are getting the value into the returns table. Now we have the deadline date. So let's come to your returns table. So what does it mean? Your deadline date basically corresponds to the date expiry in issues table. So Now, your return date would be the date when your book is being returned. Consider after 5 days, staff member is returning. In that case, the fine would be zero. But consider he's returning it after 6 days. So the delay would be 1 day. Why? Because return date is one more than the deadline date. You'll see that logic while insertions in the table as well. And then we have the fine table. So that is also based on the max logic. So based on the max issuer's ID, we are getting all the other values. But for calculating the fine, we are simply returning the delay from returns table into the fine table and then multiplying it by 10. Because delay is the amount of days there was a delay in return. Now let's jump to this SQL part, which is the most interesting stuff. So we execute these two triggers now. Let's execute the remaining ones. Alright. Let's start inserting the values. For example, I insert the value for issues table with book B01. Before we insert, let's check if the table is empty. It should be. So let's check again. This table is empty. So let's insert the record for book 1 with staff ID as the 001. Let's see what it returns. Let's start from issues. So basically we just inserted the book ID and the staff ID based on which we got the value for book title, borrower name, borrower designation, issue date, that is this date, it will be 13th of May, and date expiry. So since we entered this ID for a staff member, it took the expiry date as 5 days from the issuer's date. So in case I entered the record for a student table, student borrower ID, let's see what happens. So let's pick the student from here. Alright. So let's click that insert statement and execute. So as you can see, for a staff member, the date expiry was 5 days from the issue's date. But for a student, it's 4 days from the issue date. And it's as expected because in the trigger, we did see that we have mentioned the value for student expiry as 4 and for staff, the expiry as 5. Let's just figure this out. Let's insert it. So now we need to consider a case where we need to get a delay value. So for that, we need to come to the returns table. Let's clear this out first. Alright. So first we need to insert a clean record and returns table. Let's first check in case the returns table is completely empty. That's what we want. Alright. So currently it's empty, but we have two records in issues table with ID 1 and 2. Let's confirm that as well. So ID 1 and ID 2. Now let's insert into our returns table. So for the case 1 in issues table, we should be getting 0 as the delay because we are currently entering the return date as this date. So we'll get the issue date as 13th May and return date also as 13th May and deadline as 18th. Since our return date is not reaching the deadline, we should get a delay as 0. Let's see what we get in returns. So the delay is 0 because the return date is smaller than the deadline date. Now let's consider a case. We delete this record from returns, and so let's delete the record from this returns table and sorry, stop it. Alright. So what I did is I just deleted this record from returns table, and now just to bring in the delay part, let us just enter the return date as sysdate plus 6. So in this case, since the book 001 is with a staff member, the deadline should be 5 days from the issue date. But we are entering the return date as sysdate plus 6. That means we are returning it with the delay of 1. Let's see what our return table shows in this case. Alright, let's start now. So since the return date is 6 days more than the issue date and it's reaching the deadline by 1 day, so our delay is 1. You can also test that out by again deleting this record and making it 7. We increase more, so delay should be 2 days now. There it is. Now let's move on to the find table. So now we know that the return date for our book was 20th and delay is 2 days. Now in find table we are only entering the value for the book ID, based on which we are getting the value for book title, borrower ID, borrower name, and delay from the returns table based on the book ID. So let us just insert the value for this record and see value that you get for fine. Okay. So the day was 2 as expected, and fine amount is 2 times 10, that's 20. That's 2 as expected. So, and yeah, we should definitely use automation wherever we can. So I will be sharing all the files that we used in this video, starting from the PDF Lucid chart, the Excel sheet, and the SQL statements which I used for insertions. And you can find the links in the description. In case you have any doubts, feel free to comment. If you have liked this video, you like this project, please do like and subscribe my video. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Thank you.